My wife's friends dared her to fake an affair to test me, so I filed for divorce and left them speechless. Okay, so here's the deal. My wife, Sarah, and I have been hitched for 8 years. We've got a good thing going, not perfect, but hey, who is? We're both tied up with full-time gigs, have our routines nailed down, and try to squeeze in some weekend plans together. We've even got these date nights once a month, as long as we're not completely wiped from work. I figured we were doing pretty well, maybe not in that honeymoon love bubble, but in a solid, comfy kind of way where you don't need to be glued to each other 24/7. But, get this, turns out, Sarah's been chatting with her friends who are all divorced, and they're feeding her a load of nonsense about how I'm not all lovey-dovey enough and that she should make me fight for her or whatever bizarre advice that is. Meanwhile, I'm on the sidelines, totally clueless, spiraling into a panic thinking Sarah might be cheating on me. And it doesn't help that she's been crafting this whole plot with her, let's say, less than happy with marriage friends. The whole drama kicked off about 6 weeks ago when Sarah started acting super different. She was suddenly clocking late hours at work, coming home looking half guilty and half excited, and dodging my simple "how was your day?" questions with vague answers. Before, she was super chill about getting ready for work, but now she's dressing up like she's meeting the queen and spritzing on perfume, which she never did before. My first thought? Oh, she's got a surprise lined up for our anniversary coming soon. But then she started getting these late-night texts and acting all secretive with her phone, claiming it was just work or her sister, while looking all flustered. Then came the night she rolled in at almost midnight, claiming a girls' night out, yet she smelled like men's cologne and had smudged lipstick. I asked, naturally, and she mumbled something about hugging someone goodbye, avoiding eye contact like she was hiding something. You don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to see something's up. I started keeping a closer watch, and the weird signs just kept piling up. She'd take calls behind closed doors, quickly ending them if I walked in. She was doing laundry more often, acting like she had something to hide in the hamper. Even her showers were suspicious. She'd hop into one as soon as she got home, which was totally new behavior. And she wouldn't stop mentioning this new guy at her job, Jake, going on about how funny he was, how he'd helped her out, and all these personal details that screamed interest. Concerned, I tried to talk it out with her, asking why she seemed so distant. She brushed me off, calling it paranoia, said she was stressed with work and needed space. But the more space I gave, the shadier everything seemed. The final straw? She claimed to be having dinner with her sister, but I ran into said sister at the store, completely unaware of any such plans. That night, I confronted her, straight up asked if she was cheating. She broke down, denied everything, but couldn't give me a straight answer about her whereabouts. When someone dodges something that simple, you know there's more to the story. I barely slept, my mind racing with all the suspicious signs and her lies. I couldn't keep living like that, caught between suspicion and denial. I was seriously considering hiring a private investigator, and checking out divorce lawyer options, bracing myself to face life post-Sarah, thinking she was off with some motorcycle-loving rock climber. Then, last Tuesday, the truth surfaced in the most awkward way. Sarah's friend Lisa, clearly drunk, called me. She babbled on, cheering Sarah for following their advice to make me jealous, saying it was working because I was finally paying more attention to her. Say what? So, I dug for clarity, and Lisa spilled the whole plan. Turns out, Sarah and her divorced pals had orchestrated this wild scheme to make me more attentive, believing I might lose her if I didn't step up my game. They even made up all these fake details about this Jake guy, who is real, but barely knows Sarah past the water cooler. Lisa thought their little caper was hilarious, and that the jealous husband act meant success. I hung up, stunned, trying to process all this, swinging from relief, Sarah wasn't cheating, to confusion about how she could do this, and then to fury because this whole thing was just unbelievable. So, for weeks, I felt like I was being purposely tortured. When Sarah got home one night, I told her that Lisa called and spilled all the beans. Her face went totally pale. Then she started crying, apologizing, saying it was just a silly prank and she never meant it to go so far. She claimed she was going to come clean soon anyway, but I was too furious to even talk properly. I told her that pretending to cheat isn't a joke, it's emotional abuse. She kept trying to justify it by saying her friends convinced her our marriage was getting dull and that I was taking her for granted. She wanted more attention from me, and apparently, her plan worked because I had been more affectionate and attentive lately. This only made me angrier because she was right, I had been trying harder, thinking I was losing her. I told her what she'd done was twisted and manipulative and that instead of just talking to me about feeling unappreciated, she made me think she was having an affair, making me miserable for weeks. I lost sleep, lost weight, and was miserable every day thinking my marriage was crumbling. She kept saying sorry and that she made a mistake. But here's what nobody seems to understand when I explain this: it wasn't just a mistake or a bad joke. It was a calculated move to mess with my head, and it worked exactly as planned. That means Sarah watched me get suspicious, worried, and jealous, knowing she was the cause. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got, because every time I tried to talk to her about how distant she seemed, she made me feel paranoid and insecure. And every time I asked about her late work nights or mysterious texts, she acted like I was being controlling and jealous when, the whole time, her behavior was meant to make me feel that way. The worst part is her friends found this funny. They probably had a good laugh at my expense, thinking I was gullible. And Sarah was in on all of this. She actively participated in making me the butt of their joke. I told Sarah I needed time to think, but I knew I couldn't stay in that house any longer. I spent an hour stuffing my clothes and stuff into bags. Not knowing how long I'd be gone, I dropped most of it at a nearby storage place and took enough to crash at my brother's. While there, I couldn't stop wondering what this meant for our marriage and whether I could ever trust her again. Because if she could lie to my face for weeks and think it was okay because her friends told her to do it, then what else is she capable of? My brother, my parents, and even some friends thought I was overreacting and should forgive her since she wasn't actually cheating and was just trying to get my attention. They don't get how it felt to think she was betraying me and that my marriage was a sham. They don't understand that the emotional damage from thinking your spouse is cheating is the same, whether they're actually cheating or pretending to cheat. I kept imagining her with this guy Jake and wondering what I did wrong, how long was this going on, and if she'd ever loved me or just settled until something better came along. I was planning how to divide our stuff, where I'd live, and how to tell folks my marriage failed. All that mental and emotional torture was completely unnecessary, caused by someone who claims to love me. Thankfully, the logistics were easy. The apartment lease was in her name, so I had to leave. After 4 days at my brother's, I decided to see a divorce lawyer. When I told him everything, he said he hadn't heard anything like it, but that emotional abuse and manipulation were grounds for divorce. It showed Sarah had zero respect for me and our marriage. I went home and told her I filed for divorce. She lost it, screaming, crying, begging me not to go, saying she'd do anything to make it up to me and never listen to her friends again. But I told her the lesson she should have learned was not to torment your spouse for laughs. And that's a lesson adults shouldn't need to learn. She called her parents and mine, trying to get everyone to convince me to change my mind. She said divorce was too much and we should go to counseling, but I don't want to work through this. I don't want to be married to someone who thinks it's okay to emotionally manipulate me and then act like I'm the unreasonable one. Her friends Lisa and Monica even called, saying I was too sensitive and it was a harmless prank, that Sarah learned her lesson. I said if they thought it was harmless, they were even more messed up and likely destroyed my marriage for their entertainment. Lisa got defensive, saying Sarah complained about me not being romantic or attentive and they were just trying to help her get what she needed. I said if Sarah had issues, she should have talked to me instead of teaming up with her bitter friends to play mind games. The thing that really gets me is that Sarah still doesn't understand why what she did was so wrong. She keeps pointing out she didn't actually cheat, like that makes it okay, but she doesn't grasp that the emotional impact on me was just as bad, or even worse, because she did it on purpose. So, I've been crashing at my brother's place for the past 2 weeks because things have hit the fan with my wife, Sarah. She keeps texting me, begging me to come back and talk things out. Not to mention, she sent me this super long email admitting she messed up and now she wants to do marriage counseling and try to rebuild our trust. But honestly, I don't see how trust can be patched up after what happened. How do I know she won't pull another stunt if her friends give her more bad advice? Everyone keeps telling me, are you really going to throw away 8 years of marriage over this one thing? But they just don't get it. It wasn't just one little incident. It was weeks of outright deception and manipulation. It's tough realizing that my wife would put me through emotional hell just to see if I'd jump through hoops for her. We served the divorce papers yesterday, and Sarah called, all tears and begging me to reconsider. She promised to cut off Lisa, Monica, and Jennifer and do whatever it takes to win back my trust. But the issue isn't just her friends. It's that she thought screwing with my feelings like that was okay. Some people think I'm being too hard on her and that I should give her another shot. But I can't stop thinking about how those weeks left me unable to eat or sleep because I was so worried about losing her. And the worst part? She watched me suffer and let it keep going. Maybe if she'd come clean after a few days and said it was all a joke, I could have forgiven her. But she kept up the act for weeks. If it weren't for Lisa getting drunk and spilling the beans, I don't know how long it would have gone on. That just shows me what kind of person Sarah really is. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now. I'm getting a divorce, and everyone thinks I'm nuts for leaving Sarah over what they call a harmless prank. But I know it wasn't harmless at all. It was a betrayal of everything marriage should be about. And I'm not going to spend my life worrying about what other tests she might throw my way. Am I the jerk for calling it quits? People keep making me feel like I'm the unreasonable one here. Update time. Wow, I didn't expect this to blow up like it did. Reading through all the comments and messages has been both eye-opening and overwhelming. It's nice to see people who get why this was such a big deal. Many have asked for more details about what exactly went down, so here it goes. Sarah's friends are kinda infamous. There's Lisa, who got divorced after her husband cheated with his secretary. Then there's Monica, who's been divorced twice and is dating some dude from a dating app she always complains about. And Jennifer, who recently finalized her divorce. They have these Thursday night meetups called Wine Night, but it's mostly a man-bashing session. I used to think it was harmless, even encouraged Sarah to go because she seemed to enjoy it, but now I see these women have been filling her head with ideas that I'm too comfortable in our marriage and that she needs to scare me into appreciating her. What Sarah did during those 6 weeks was even worse than what I first mentioned. She started working out, buying new clothes, and acting all mysterious when I complimented her, making it seem like she was trying to impress someone else. Suddenly, she was super critical of me, little digs about how I dressed, my haircut, or why I never surprised her anymore. I thought she was having a midlife crisis or something, but now I know her friends were behind it, trying to make me feel insecure. Even the phone calls and texts were fake. Lisa and Monica would text her randomly and call in the evening so she could act all secretive. They researched some guy, Jake, from her office just to make her chat seem legit. The worst part? They had a whole timeline mapped out, phases and everything. Phase 1, distant and secretive. Phase 2, fake calls and late nights at work. Phases 3 and 4 were even crazier, with her actually going out, acting like she was cheating, and even disappearing overnight. Thank God Lisa blabbed before they got that far, I was already hanging by a thread. Sarah admitted they were taking pictures and videos, documenting my stress just to laugh about how well their plan was working. And Sarah wasn't just okay with it, she was in on it, reporting back how I reacted to each new lie. A lot of folks asked if Sarah seemed to enjoy it. Looking back, yeah, she seemed way too into the power trip. She looked more alive and excited than I'd seen in years, and I thought she was falling in love again, but now it's clear it was all about the control. So, it turned out Sarah wasn't spending time with someone else like I initially thought. Instead, she was kind of getting a kick out of messing with my head. She'd come back from work with this smug little grin and watch me squirm, trying to figure out any changes about her. Whenever I tried to question her, she'd throw me these tiny scraps of info, just enough to keep me on edge but never enough to actually calm me down. Sometimes, it was like she was almost enjoying my anxious and confused state. I later realized her friends were in on it too, giving her tips on how to gaslight me. For instance, when I called her out on lying about being with her sister, they had coached her to twist the situation to make me feel guilty for not trusting her and for supposedly being paranoid. Of course, that's exactly what she did. Then when I brought up how distant she seemed, her friends told her to say I was being too needy and that I should give her some space. And again, she parroted their advice. It felt like this was a well-coordinated attack to make me second-guess myself and make me feel like I was the problem. The more I found out about what they were doing, the angrier I got. Filing for divorce felt like the right move because this was far from an innocent prank, it was more like a manipulative game meant to mess with me for their own amusement. Sarah's been leaving me voicemails every day, begging me to reconsider and promising she'll ditch those friends and fix everything. But honestly, the damage is done and I don't see us bouncing back from this. Her family has even been calling me, asking me to give her another chance, saying she's learned her lesson and that everyone screws up sometimes. But this wasn't just a mistake, it was a choice she made over and over for 6 weeks. She had plenty of chances to stop and come clean, but she kept it going. Sarah's sister even called me out, saying I'm being cruel for not talking it out with Sarah. I told her it's cruel to watch your partner suffer while you know why, and you're causing it on purpose. Moving forward with the divorce is making me feel more at peace every day, especially as I learn more about how planned this all was. I realize the person I thought I married doesn't exist, and the real Sarah is someone who thought it was okay to mess with me like that. People have asked if I'm worried I'll regret this decision later, but I actually feel like I'm seeing things clearly for the first time. I know now I deserve better than someone who'd do something like this. Update number 2, things have taken an even crazier turn since my last update, and I'm stuck between laughing and freaking out. I wanted to share what's been happening because it's so wild. Sarah's up to something new. Since crying and pleading didn't work, she's now blaming me for everything. She claims her fake affair was my fault because I wasn't paying enough attention to her, and she felt neglected in our marriage. She sent me this long text saying she'd been hinting for more romance and I was just ignoring it. So, she felt like faking an affair was the only way to get my attention. She actually said, "You forced me to fake an affair," which is just bonkers. In her new version of how things went down, this wasn't a prank at all. It was her way of trying to communicate her needs since I wasn't catching on to her hints. She seems to genuinely believe she was justified because I wasn't meeting her emotional needs. I showed this crazy text to my lawyer, and he just shook his head, saying he's never seen someone dig themselves deeper like this. And it gets worse. Sarah's been chatting with her friends and coworkers, and they're now hearing how I'm divorcing her because she was just trying to spice things up, making me sound like I'm being totally unreasonable. A friend of mine, Dave, who works with Sarah, pulled me aside to ask what was really going on because rumors were spreading at her office that I was overreacting. Dave knows me well enough to know something was off, so I filled him in on what really happened. He was shocked since Sarah had painted it as harmless teasing to get my attention, not this mind game she was playing. Now, Sarah's rewriting history to make me look like the bad guy, and I have to deal with that too. I'm sure her divorced friends are backing her story since it was their plan in the first place. To protect myself, I saved all the voicemails she left me right after everything came out, where she's crying, apologizing, and admitting her fake affair was all a lie. I have a feeling I might need this proof when she tries to flip the script. As for her friends, Lisa finally sobered up and realized she'd blown their whole scheme. She called, trying to downplay the whole thing and convince me to give Sarah another shot. But she only made things worse by spilling more about how planned this was. She mentioned they'd been plotting for 3 months and even researched ways to make men jealous. They thought the fake affair would be the best way to get me to shape up as a husband. Lisa also admitted they'd been documenting the whole thing in a group chat and celebrated each time their plan made me more anxious or attentive. I've been calling this whole thing Project Wake Up Call, and just thinking about it makes me want to puke. But here's the kicker that really got me riled up. Lisa mentioned they were actually bummed out that it took me ages to confront Sarah about the so-called affair. They figured I'd get all jealous and possessive way earlier. Apparently, they started thinking maybe I just didn't give a hoot about Sarah to fight for her. So, not only did they put me through 6 weeks of agony, but they were also judging how well I played the role of a worried husband. It was like they saw me as this lab rat that wasn't living up to their twisted expectations. Lisa even mentioned Monica suggested they should up the ante and have Sarah go on a fake date with some guy to see how far they could push me before I lost it. Thankfully, they decided against it, worried I might hire a private detective or something and bust their little scheme wide open. Just knowing they even considered taking it that far shows me these women don't have any boundaries or decency. Honestly, if they hadn't been stopped by their own idiocy, they would have kept going until I was totally crushed mentally. I later found out Sarah's parents kind of had a clue because she'd asked them for tips on how to make me more romantic. She told them it was all about planning surprises and mixing up our routine, so they had no idea she was planning out a fake affair. When they heard the truth after I filed for divorce, they were shocked and told Sarah her behavior was just not okay. But they're still trying to get me to give her another chance, as they don't want this to end the marriage. Her dad even called me yesterday, saying he got why I was mad but thought divorce was too extreme and that Sarah had learned her lesson. I told him that what Sarah did was extreme, so my reaction is pretty fair, given the damage she caused. I mentioned if someone else had done this to me, like a stranger, he'd probably want me to press charges. Just because his daughter did it doesn't make it any less twisted or hurtful. He didn't really have a comeback to that. I think it's finally hitting him that this isn't just some little marital fight we can patch up with apologies and counseling. The divorce is chugging along, and my lawyer says it should wrap up fast since there are no kids or complicated finances involved. Honestly, I just want to get this over with so I can start rebuilding without Sarah trying to manipulate the story. I'm planning to move to a new part of town after the divorce, too. The idea of running into Sarah or her friends at the store or gym gives me the creeps. Plus, a fresh start might help wash this nightmare away. People ask if I miss Sarah or have second thoughts about divorcing. I mean, I miss who I thought she was. But I absolutely don't miss who she turned out to be. I'm actually relieved I found out what she was capable of before we had kids or bought a house or made any bigger commitments. I keep thinking about what would have happened if Lisa hadn't gotten drunk and spilled the beans about their little experiment. How long would Sarah have let me think she was cheating? The woman I thought I married wouldn't have let me suffer like that without coming clean. But the real Sarah watched me lose weight, sleep, and stay anxious all the time. Not only did she not feel bad, she found it amusing and reported back to her friends about how well their plan was going. That's not someone I want to be married to or trust ever again. I'm done feeling guilty for trying to protect myself from someone who clearly doesn't care about my well-being. Update time. I figured I was done with updates, but something happened yesterday that was just too wild not to share. Seriously, I couldn't make this stuff up if I tried. It's like Sarah and her friends are out to prove they're even worse than I thought. The divorce is almost finalized, just a week away. I thought most of the drama was behind me except for Sarah occasionally trying to beg me to take her back. But her friends decided they needed one last shot to fix the mess they created. Monica called me yesterday and wanted to meet up to chat about Sarah and patch things up. Despite knowing better, I went for coffee with her because I was curious what she could say that would change anything. We meet, and she starts off apologizing for the whole fake affair fiasco, admitting they messed up. I thought she might actually own up to it. Then she hits me with this wild confession, acting all serious as if she's about to drop some huge bombshell that would explain it all. What she said next made me laugh. Monica claimed the real reason behind their fake affair stunt was because Sarah thought I was cheating. Apparently, Sarah was worried I was having an affair because of a few late working nights, changing my phone password, and hitting the gym more often. She asked her friends for advice, and they came up with a fake affair plan to see if I'd get jealous or if I was actually cheating and wouldn't care about Sarah cheating back. It's so ridiculous I couldn't believe she expected me to buy it. So, I asked why Sarah had never mentioned being suspicious of me. So, every time we talked about the divorce, I couldn't help but wonder why Sarah never mentioned any of these issues before, especially when she was apologizing and asking me to take her back. When I asked Monica about it, she got all flustered and claimed that Sarah was just too embarrassed to voice her suspicions. Apparently, she didn't want to point fingers without any proof, so she kept everything to herself and just sought advice from her friends. But come on, I know this is total nonsense. Sarah had zero reasons to be suspicious of me. I've never cheated in my life and haven't even been tempted to. The things Monica called red flags are typical married life things. I work late sometimes because of pressing deadlines and projects. I changed my phone password only because I got a new phone and needed a more secure password for my work apps. And I started hitting the gym more because my doctor said I should. None of this stuff would make a reasonable person think I'm cheating. Sarah never once asked about my late nights, phone, or gym routine. So to me, it feels like Monica is twisting the narrative to make Sarah seem like a victim. I told Monica that her story is ridiculous and seems like she's trying to rewrite history. She got all defensive, saying I was being unreasonable and that Sarah was really worried about our marriage. She even had the nerve to say their crazy fake affair stunt worked because it made me more attentive and romantic, and that we could have been solid if I hadn't filed for divorce. I told her the marriage would have been stronger if Sarah had just talked to me about her issues rather than scheming with her bitter friends to mess with my head. The fact that she preferred lying and manipulating over honest conversation told me everything I needed to know about her and her friends. I stood up, told Monica to lose my number, and to pass that message to Sarah and the rest of her crew. The only person I wanted contact with was my lawyer, and their attempts to further manipulate me just confirmed my choice. I walked out of the coffee shop, leaving Monica there stunned. I drove for a while, trying to wrap my head around their audacity. Their excuses went from it was a joke to you forced her to do it, and then, it was a loyalty test. It was like watching a masterclass in shifting blame and gaslighting. Honestly, it was almost impressive how far they'd go to avoid taking responsibility. I'm done being their joke. The upside is that I'm finally free. Update 4. It's over. After 8 crazy months of ridiculous drama, the divorce is finally done. 8 long months. And each day, Sarah or her squad found a new way to make me question my sanity. But I've come out the other side. Honestly, I'm just numb. Last time I updated you, Monica tried to sell me on the whole loyalty test excuse, and I thought that was peak insanity. But, nope, I was wrong. So wrong. For the next few months, Sarah switched between playing the victim and sending cold, detached emails through her lawyer, like she wasn't the same person leaving me tearful voicemails not long ago. One moment, she was telling mutual friends I left her at her lowest. The next, her lawyer demanded a fondue pot from our wedding. Her parents kept trying to mediate, which was basically just them telling me to forgive and move on because marriage is tough. I finally had to bluntly tell her dad that what Sarah did wasn't just marriage problems, it was a twisted game that I'm done playing. That seemed to get through, and they backed off. And get this, for the final mediation, Sarah brought Jennifer with her for support. Jennifer, one of the masterminds behind the whole scheme, sat there with a smug look like she was some relationship guru. I looked at my lawyer and said I wouldn't utter a word with her in the room. The mediator asked her to leave. Sarah acted like I committed some huge crime for not wanting someone who played a part in my psychological torment watching me divide up our stuff. You can't make this up. The day the divorce was finalized felt strange. I got the email from my lawyer, and that was it. I'm still crashing at my brother's place while hunting for my own apartment. I needed time to chill and not be in the house we shared. I know I made the right call, I have no doubts about that, but it's hard to swallow that this is my life now. Divorced at 36 because my wife and her friends thought it'd be fun to mess with my head as a way to spice up our marriage. It's still the most insane thing I've ever dealt with, and I'm just relieved it's finally over. If you haven't yet, please subscribe. And hit the notification bell to stay updated with more crazy real life stories happening around you.